It's Ashley and Nick with Arbite Software. We're back again with a new Debt Collection 101 episode. We have a very special guest. We have Jud Phillips. He's the CEO of Capital Compliance Group. So thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for inviting me.
Of course. So for some people who may be watching this and don't know you or Capital Compliance Group, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Sure. My background is in law. I have a law degree and was a lawyer for a while. I'm now what lawyers call a recovering attorney, which means I was smart enough to get out. I also have an MBA, and so I've got a bit of a background in business. Capital Compliance Group is a company that provides primarily licensing, but also compliance and consultation services for companies in the debt collection space. What I like to say is we will outsource your licensing department for you and do it at a lot cheaper than you can do it in-house.
Cool. Well, great.
So can you tell us about what the proposed legislation for the debt collection agencies in New York State would entail?
Absolutely. They say a lot of the trends begin in either California or in New York, and unfortunately, this is a trend that is beginning in New York, and it is a little bit alarming. Now, let me give you a little bit of background, the sort of the 50,000-foot view, and then I'll dive on in real quick. Post-2016 election, President Trump becomes president, obviously. His administration comes in, and they are much more friendly towards business than the previous Obama administration. And this is reflected in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and its actions and its new director, et cetera. So both California and New York get on their wagons and decide we're going to propose new legislation to create many CFPBs within our own states, which is interesting because the Supreme Court in the next few months is going to decide the constitutionality of the CFPB. So a year from now, it might not be around. New York is proposing very strong and very radical legislation to regulate debt collection industries, or debt collectors, I should say. Right now, New York State does not require debt collectors to be licensed at all. The three cities within the state of New York, Yonkers, Buffalo, and New York City, do require it. But this is going to require this proposed legislation. Governor Cuomo has proposed it. It's going to go to the New York State Legislature, so it's going to pass in some shape, form, or fashion. But it requires debt collectors to be throughout the state to be licensed. This includes whether you're within the state or you collect from debtors inside the state of New York. We've been reviewing it in-house, and one of the discussions we had this morning, does this include both active and passive debt buyers? And our interpretation is based on the draft legislation right now, it also includes passive debt buyers as well. But like the great midnight commercials, but wait, there's more. The proposed legislation is more restrictive than what the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act currently imposes. For example, under FDCPA, you can call between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Well, under this proposed legislation, you can only call between 8 a.m. And 8 p.m. So it's a little bit less time. Proposals through the CFPB say you can have one contact a day. You can have seven contacts in a 7-day period. Under this proposed legislation, there's only 2 contacts per week allowed. Listen, I'm hitting the highlights of it, and this gets worse as we go. Not only that, you cannot do any form of electronic communication with a debtor. That means even though text messages are about to be allowed, can't do text messages, emails, social media, can't do postcards. It's really restrictive. Then, like I said, this gets worse. Under the proposed legislation, the state of New York can come into a debt collector at any time for any reason or no reason at all, go through all your books, records, and everything else, and they can do it as often as they want. Again, it continues to get worse. One good thing I will say, at least right now in the proposal, is there is no private right of action. Now, for those not familiar with that term, private right of action means that just an individual who is aggrieved by whatever conduct is made illegal can sue. For example, if you're in the debt collection space, you are familiar with Fair Debt Collection Practice Act lawsuits, as well as Telephone Consumer Protection Act lawsuits. And plaintiffs' lawyers are able to sue debt collectors because there is something called a private right of action. Now, no private right of action in this proposed legislation yet, but the governor's proposed it. It's now going to the legislature.
Oh my God. That's a lot of information. I think you kind of touched on this next question, though, the likelihood, what's the likelihood of that the legislation will move forward? It seems kind of, in your opinion, that it's going to get passed no matter what.
Well,
is that accurate?
Yes. All right. Here's the reality of life. In New York State, the Democrats control the state government. Okay. Governor Cuomo, very powerful Democrat, has made this proposal, has created this proposed legislation that is now being sent to the New York State House and New York State Senate. It's going to pass. Now, the question is going to be, what will it look like when it passes? Because the state legislature will take a look at it. They're going to want to have their input in on this. State representatives, state senators will propose amendments to it. Some of those amendments will pass. Some of those amendments are not going to pass. So we don't know what the final product's going to look like. We do know it will be should take effect in October of this year. Now, there's one thing to talk about, and I'm going to go a little bit off here, but it's really important for people, for debt collectors, their employees, and their clients in New York State. This proposed legislation, which, by the way, I forgot, I just realized I didn't mention the absolute worst provision of that. And that is a provision that says when you are a debt collector and you try to contact a debtor, you have to send them a notice within 5 days of your first contact. And if they don't respond to that notice, you may not contact them again. That's literally, as I was going through the list, I forgot to mention that one. Now, it's crazy. Now, but now there's some good news here. Yeah. All right. Good news is this has not been passed yet, which means there's a lot of time to impact on what is being done. And that is why I said debt collection agencies, the ownership, employees, small businesses who rely on debt collectors to recover revenue that helps keep them in business, helps them make payroll, things like that, have a wonderful opportunity to intervene. And let me go a little political here because this is really important. I will bet money here. In fact, I'm gonna put you two on the spot here. Okay? No, we'll have a little fun here, but there's a point. Do you guys know the name of your state house of representative member or your state senator? All right. Yeah, well, no, I'm not shocked that you don't. In fact, I would have been really surprised if either one of you had answered yes. I know that it's John Doe or whoever. Most people have no idea who their state representative, who their state senator is. Here's a dirty little secret of state politics. State politics is incredibly responsive because, at the level of the U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, you get millions of dollars flooding into campaigns. You get lobbyists. You get all these people coming in and fighting it out. And these races are decided often by hundreds of thousands of votes. State House, state Senate races, they're different animals. You can call your state senator or your state representative up and you can get a meeting with them. It is not that hard because state rep races, state Senate races, are not the big sexy races like president, like governor, like U.S. Senate, U.S. House, etc. In most states where I'm familiar with, most members will have constituent coffees. I know where I am, my home is just outside of Nashville. I know my state rep and my state senator, they both will meet at a local coffee house, usually once a week. And if you want to have a meeting with them, you just call the office up, say, hey, I'd like to meet with my representative or my senator. And they'll say, okay, 3:30 at Joe's Coffee Shack on Highway 96. And he'll see you there. What do you want to talk to him about? Well, every debt collection owner, every and debt collection owners should get their employees to do this as well, because their jobs are actually on the line with this legislation. Call your state senator, call your state representative, become aware of what these proposals are, go down and have a chat with them, because debt collection agencies have got great stories to tell. And these stories are never told. The only stories that are ever told are, oh, this scum-sucking debt collection agent called me at midnight and threatened to have the sheriff come and arrest me if I didn't pay my bill. And we know that that's a small minority of the bad actors in the business, and we're running them out of the business. But debt collection agencies are small businesses. They are family-owned businesses. They're like anybody else. They're like you and me. You're trying to, buy your house, put your kids through school, live the American dream. And guess what? Debt collection agencies hire employees. Well, if you make their jobs impossible to do, which some folks do want that is their objective. But if you make their jobs impossible to do, guess what? They're not hiring people. They're not, they're going to have to go out and find a job themselves because their small business collapses. And a ton of small businesses out there, doctors, dentists, veterinarians, stores, all kinds of businesses that rely on debt recovery to keep their businesses functioning. So this is why I tell folks, find out who your state senator is, and this is particularly true for the people in New York. Find out who your state senator is. Find out who your state rep is. Call them up. Arrange to have coffee with them or meet with them in their office. Tell them, hey, this bill is pending. This is why this is a bad bill. If I have to send out this notice, and if the person just doesn't return this notice, I can't contact them again. The only other alternative I've got is to turn it over to a lawyer and file suit. And that's not a good alternative.
Jeez.
Yeah,
so much information. I know. I didn't even know. Half of that probably, maybe more.
Yeah.
So it's super interesting.
And I didn't think it was as impactful as it actually was. I just thought it was more along the lines of, they're being held more accountable, not really affecting their day to day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Within the groups that are pushing this legislation, there's really two schools of thought. There is a school of thought from some people that says we need more government intervention because we need more regulation to help keep bad actors out of this business and keep there from being abuses. And we can disagree with how much regulation, or agree or disagree with how much regulation is needed. We all agree we need to push bad actors out of this business because bad actors give everybody related to the debt collection industry a bad name. But there's also a separate group that's pushing on this. Their philosophy is we want to make it impossible for you to collect a debt. If somebody runs out without paying whoever, the store, the bank, whoever, we just want to make it impossible for the bank, the debt collection agency, anybody to collect on that. And that's pretty bad and pretty destructive for our local economies.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you hit on pretty much all of these questions, but I guess, so I know you said reach out to your state senator or representative, but is there anything else agencies can do to prepare for the legislation, or would you just recommend them reaching out and just keep fighting it?
Well, right now it is a proposal, and the beauty of proposals is they can be changed. All right. So, but if you are a New York State agency, or if you collect debt in New York State, or if you collect debt in California, I'm going to add California in here a little bit too. Keep your ears on. You got to be paying attention to this because these the regulations and rules concerning your agency are going to change in the next few months. The question is going to be what? The answer is I don't know. But what I would do, reach out to Capital Compliance Group because this is what we do. Licensing is what we do. And by the end of the year in New York State, in some, we don't know what the form is going to look like yet. You're going to have to be licensed. California, sort of the same story. Their rules are going to be a little bit different, but you're going to have much more expansive licensing requirements. And you can try to do this in-house, which I know some people that do that. And we've also gotten calls here at Capital Compliance Group from companies that tried to do it in-house and suddenly discover their employee dropped the ball or made a mistake, and suddenly they've got a huge portfolio in some state, and they can't collect on it because guess what? They're not licensed. They're potentially subject to now some civil liabilities, some fines, and they got to go through the process of getting relicensed again. So, one of the best things they can do, get in touch with us, and we'll certainly help you out, making sure you're compliant, that you're licensed, and that you can operate in any state you want to operate in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Jud.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I mean, you said everything. So for viewers, you heard it here first. New York State, California, they are cracking the whip. So yeah, reach out. I'm sure Jud is happy to take any questions or calls. So if you have questions in regards to this proposal, feel free to reach out to Jud. And thank you so much for joining us. That was great information.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to do it. And anytime I can help you guys out with anything like this, obviously, feel free to reach out to me.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.
See you later.
See ya.